Okay. Hello, everyone. It's 5 p.m., actually a little after, so I would like to call the Audit Committee meeting to order. I would like to welcome each of you to the first Audit Committee meeting of the 25-26 school year. We'll have a full agenda today, so I would like to get us started with introductions, and I will start with myself. My name is Patty Sullivan, and I am the PPS board member representing Zone 3, and I'm chair of this Audit Committee. Oh, Andrea left just for a minute. Well, she'll be back by the time we get around. We'll start with you, Janice.
Okay, my name is Janice Hansen, and I'm the district's internal auditor.
Hi, Michelle Morrison, Chief Financial Officer.
Hello, Caroline Zabikovsky. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a community member on the audit committee, and I also have an auditing background as I work in the Multnomah County Auditor's Office.
Okay, let's start with people who are on the screen there. Stephanie, you want to start? Or Stephanie, you want to introduce yourself? She's having trouble with the stuff. Okay, I'm going to go to Christy.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm crossing the Broadway Bridge, so I'm very close after hitting very bad traffic trying to get over the hill from Southwest Portland. So I'll be there soon. I'm the school board member from Zone 1. Really excited to be on the committee, grateful for the community membership as well, and look forward to getting to know all of you once I get there in a few minutes.
Okay, great. Okay, Virginia, are you live? Hi.
I'm alive. Hi, I'm not on the audit committee, but my name's Virginia. I'm the PPS board of directors member for Zone 5, and I saw that you have a packed agenda and thought I would listen in. Looks like there's a lot going on, so I'm excited. Thanks for organizing this, Patty.
Great, welcome.
Director Sullivan.
Okay. And one more person here.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Samuels, she, her, member of the audit committee. I'm a community member.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everybody. And Andrea Shears, our senior legal counsel, had to zip out for a minute, and she will be back, but I think we can start without her. Okay, we do have a long agenda today, and a lot of it will be me talking. So I hope you don't get too tired of my voice. So the next item on the agenda is the audit committee membership. The audit committee is unique from our other board committees in that we have 2 community members, right there, who serve as ex officio members of this committee. I want to take a couple of minutes to draw attention to the value of having community members serving on the audit committee. The Council of Great City Schools recently issued a white paper on internal auditing that includes a section about the roles, responsibilities, and membership of audit committees. The white paper is posted for you in board books. To help facilitate this conversation, Janice printed a copy of the white paper for us and added a flag on the page that refers to community members. The second paragraph on page 5, and if you flag that, we'll find it. Encourages everyone, states, and I'm going to read it. Actually, I was going to have a board member read it, but they're not here. I'm the only one, so I'm going to read it. And the second paragraph refers to community membership. To effectively oversee the internal audit function, the council recommends that a school district's audit committee be comprised of individuals independent of the school district and collectively have auditing, finance, information technology, risk management, and governance experience. An audit committee of experienced professionals with no authority over the school district's operations or decision-making processes can shield the internal audit staff from actual or perceived pressure that would compromise their objectivity and independence. So we really welcome you. Even the great city schools recognize how important you are. The audit committee also welcomes up to 2 students to serve as ex officio members. Per board policy, students may be appointed to the audit committee by the student representative to the board and/or at the discretion of the chair of the audit committee. I have reached out to our student representative, Ian Ritordo, and he will be letting students know about this opportunity. Even though we do not have any students for our first meeting, we will welcome students at any time during the year. The next item on the agenda is the status of the implementation of the contracts audit recommendations. One of the primary roles of the audit committee is to provide oversight and support for the Office of Internal Performance Audit. One of the ways the audit committee supports the work is to follow up on the status of the implementation of recommendations included in their audit reports. The PPS Audit Committee and Internal Performance Audit Charter states, management will be responsible for reporting quarterly updates to the audit committee until recommendations are implemented. I have been included on some emailed communications with Dr. Adams, so I'm aware that he and his team are working on preparing a report for the board that will include the review and evaluation of the goals identified in the contracts for the 24-25 school year and identify the goals that were identified for the 25-26 school year contracts. My understanding is that the information included in the report may be the evidence that the internal audit team is looking for to demonstrate the implementation of the contracts audit recommendations, number 3 and 4. Dr. Adams did let me know that the report he is working on would not be ready to present to the audit committee today, but we did invite him to just give a kind of a general overview. However, he's not here. But he is planning to come to the October 28th board meeting, and we'll be able to answer our questions there. And also, if we need more information from Dr. Adams, we will invite him back to another audit committee meeting. So the next item on the agenda is to discuss the status of the annual comprehensive financial report, referred to as the ACFR audit, and the audit of compliance with federal grant requirements, referred to as the single audit. When I was at the PEC last week, I bumped into Dan, the partner from TKW that is responsible for our audit. So I happen to know that they are already on site working on the audit. I was planning just to mention that and talk about scheduling for the presentation of the results. However, I see that our CFO, wonderful Michelle Morrison, is to my right, and she has provided us with a memo. So Chief Morrison, would you like to go over the memo with us?
Yes, thank you, Director Sullivan. So we do have an issue with our single audit because each year the Federal Office of Management and Budget, OMB, releases an updated audit compliance guidelines known as the Compliance Supplement. And it was usually is released in May, and it has not come out yet. And that are directions to our auditors on how to go about their testing of our federal programs. And so they are completing the work as if there hasn't been a lot of change. So they're going through their standard operating procedures as they would for our single audit, and drafting a report based on that. But it may create some challenges for us if the OMB guidance comes out with new information, because they'll have to come back and do some testing, and we'll likely have to revise our statements to a degree.
Yes, and I understand the state needs that information.
Yes,
in a timely way.
Yes, and as was in our memo, we have been in dialogue with the state, and as you can imagine, this is not an issue for Portland Public Schools alone. Currently, the requirement is for the state to receive our annual financial report that would include the single audit information before by the end of December, so that we could receive by statute our January state school fund payment. And so there's a procedural challenge there that they're facing and will address at the state level if the guidance doesn't come out soon.
So you just have to wait See.
We just have to wait. I think one of the things that we can share with confidence is we are fully engaged with our auditors. They are doing their testing per all of the controls that we've already done. So we will have a financial report, and those financial reports won't change necessarily. It's only the testing around the single audit that may change. So we may have to go about committee review and then even board approval a little bit differently this year. So I would ask for a little bit of flexibility if we need it, maybe in December.
Okay, thank you. So currently, the plan is to have an audit committee meeting on November 6th. So we will have another opportunity to get a status update before our December audit committee meeting. But for now, it seems unlikely the external auditors will be ready to present the results of the audit in the meeting we have scheduled for December 4th, right?
Yeah, they will present information. That's up to the committee. So we can present a draft of what they have. It just won't have their final opinion issued at that time. So we can do it as the information comes available to us along our original timeline, or we can alter it depending on how many steps we want to take.
Okay, as of now, being pretty sure it's not going to be ready by December 4th. I've been working with the board office to find an alternative date in December. And as of now, I have a meeting invite that's been sent to you to hold a spot for the audit committee meeting on December 17th at noon instead of the December 4th meeting. I suppose we should keep 4 as a whole just in case. We really value the input and expertise of our community members, and we try to make it easier to serve on the committee by not starting our audit committee meetings until 5. But for the December 18th meeting, to accommodate everybody's busy December schedules, the noon meeting was the best that we could come up with. However, we would like to have the meeting be virtual, and we will only have the presentation of the CFR audit results agenda, so hopefully the meeting will be less than an hour. So I guess that's all we can do is prepare for anything.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Okay, the last thing I want to mention related to this topic is that each year, and this is particularly for Christy and, she's probably listening, and Stephanie to listen to. It looks like Stephanie's having trouble with her Zoom. Anyway.
Chair Sullivan, I just want you to know I'm absolutely listening with rapt attention. The Broadway Bridge is
thought you were
closed.
listening to every one of my
So
wonderful
I've had to
words.
swing through all sorts of traffic to get to the Steel, and I am now on Williams. So I'm getting close.
Okay, so this
It's been a 50-minute odyssey from Southwest Portland at this point, but I'm hanging in there.
I'm sure it's very enjoyable. Okay. So this is really for Stephanie and Christy. Last year, I was one of the board members that met with the auditors who request to interview 1 or 2 members of the board. When I got the notice from Roseanne that the auditors wanted to meet with me, Janice had already informed me that the auditors typically want to meet with a couple of board members each year to complete a risk assessment questionnaire. When I met with them, no one actually called the meeting a risk assessment, and the meeting felt much more like a conversation instead of a checklist of questions. Also, there are no right or wrong answers. They just want to better understand the board's perspective. I just wanted to share that experience with you just in case either of you, Christy or Stephanie, get a request to meet with the auditors this year. Often the auditors do request to meet with one of the board members that sit on the audit committee. Just know that it's just part of their routine audit procedures and there's nothing to worry about. Also, if the request does come to you, please try and schedule that meeting with them at your earliest convenience. If you want more information before you meet with them, please just give Janice a phone call and she will be happy to explain why the auditors want to meet with a couple of board members. Okay, now moving on to the next agenda item. And this is one where I'm glad that Virginia is there. Appreciate you being here. This is a discussion of the external audits of our bond program. When we asked our community to support our bonds, we promised to be good stewards of those bond funds. One of the ways we demonstrate this is through the accountability and transparency provided to our community via the Bond Accountability Committee, or the BAC. Another promise we made to our community is to get annual performance audits of our bond program. For the annual bond performance audits, we contract with a firm called Schoberg Evanshank Consulting, which we refer to as SEC. We have to get another acronym in there, just as school district. When SEC has completed the annual performance audit, the audit committee asks the external auditors to present the results of the audit to us. Last year, we got the presentation from SEC in June, and with the graduations taking place in June, scheduling was extremely difficult. So I asked Janice to reach out to them to get an idea of when they anticipate their report will be ready. This year, the report will not be ready to present until June or July, so I would like to plan for a July 2026 audit committee meeting for the purpose of receiving the annual bond performance audit. This will be tricky because we do not typically have any committee meetings in July, and typically the current makeup of the audit committee ends on June 30th. Then, typically, it is August before the chair of the board assigns the chairs of the committees, and then it takes time for the new chair of a committee to get their meeting scheduled. I do not want to wait until August or September to get their report. We have not always been consistent in making sure those audit reports are delivered to the board or one of its committees, and it's very important that we follow through on our commitments to our community to provide the oversight of our bond funds that we promised. I am going to reach out to the chair of the board to see what can be done to figure out a way to arrange a July audit committee meeting, and I'd like to invite the facilities committee, you, Virginia, and the bond accountability committee, and that's probably a committee, I know, a committee that Christy will be involved with, and have those three groups join together for the report from the bond auditor. Ideally, we can extend the current makeup of audit committee members to end at the end of July instead of the end of June. Again, I will need to talk to the chair of the board to see what our options are, but I will be doing that, and I will keep you updated through the year. There is one other topic related to the bond performance audits that I would like to discuss with the audit committee. Yeah, so strange to see people on the screen. I really want them here. And that is related to the implementation of the recommendations that the bond auditors make in their annual reports. Again, this is something very important for you to hear, Virginia. When we received the presentation from the bond auditors in June of 2025, the Year 6 report included 23 recommendations. In addition to the 23 recommendations in the Year 6 report, they stated that we had an additional 20 recommendations that were made in prior years that the district had not yet implemented. So that's a total of 43 outstanding recommendations. To help me better understand, I asked Janice to go through the outstanding recommendations with me in detail. Oh, yay, here's Christy. For example, one of the recommendations that was made in the Year 3 report was the PPS board should revisit its equity in public purchasing and contracting policy to clarify and define the district's vision, goals, and commitment to business equity. This should include reassessing the overall intent, determining how equity is characterized, and expanding on what attainment of business equity goals for the district should entail. And the recommendation goes on to state, once the equity in public purchasing and contracting policy has been board affirmed, OSM, the Office of School Modernization, I'm so bad with those things, OSM, should work with other PPS departments involved with developing and implementing the district's business equity directive. And then it goes on to list 5 additional recommendations that have to do with policy. Basically, what that means is that the board needs to revisit its equity and public purchasing and contracting policy before OSM can address the additional 5 recommendations. For some context, the Year 3 report was issued in November of 2021, and to date, the board has not revisited its equity and public purchasing and contracting policy. That really needs to be done so that OSM can utilize that updated policy to address the recommendations. What it appears like now is that OSM is not implementing the recommendations, when it's actually we as the board that needs to revisit our policy first. They really can't address that problem until we do. As we walked through the other recommendations, Janice and I started to wonder if the audit committee is the best place to follow up on the status of the implementation of other recommendations. For most of the recommendations, outside the ones for the board, the industry knowledge and expertise around the bond program already exists in our Bond Accountability Committee, that's where you're involved, and the Facilities Committee, which is Virginia. I am really glad you're checking in on this, Virginia. As a result,
you're crushing it.
As a result, I asked Janice to go through all the recommendations and identify which committees would be best to follow up on the recommendations, and she has done that. She has also met with the chair of each committee to explain why their committee would be best to follow up on the outstanding recommendation, and gave them an idea of what following up on those recommendations might entail for their committees. Janice reported back to me that each of the chairs of the other committees seemed willing to follow up on the recommendations that she identified for their committee. All of that is great, and I think we will see some progress on the implementation of the outstanding recommendations this year. The reason I want to talk to you all, the audit committee, about this is because technically the responsibilities to follow up on the implementation of the recommendations resides in the audit committee's charter, and it is not in the other committees. However, I think we have found a way around this, so I wanted to run it past you. In the audit committee's charter, it states, the audit committee will review all performance audits done by external auditors and make recommendations to the full board and management about reporting, monitoring, and corrective action plans. So I was thinking maybe the audit committee could make a recommendation to the full board that the applicable committees take on the follow-up of the recommendations that were identified for their committees. Although the chairs of each of the committees seem willing to take it on, I do not want to pass off the audit committee's work to other committees without a reason. We've already mentioned the reason about going to the policy committee, but another reason, see my notes here, there's 6, here's 7. Another reason that this work could be done in another committee is because the Office of School Modernization staff already attend the Facilities Committee and the Bond Accountability Committees. If we do the follow-up in the Audit Committee, that would mean OSM staff would need to regularly attend Audit Committee meetings, plus all the other committees that they attend to get updates. With all that being said, I do not think the Audit Committee has ever exercised its authority to make recommendations to the full board in this way before, so I do not know for sure exactly how that would work. But with the blessing of you all, the Audit Committee would like to recommend to the full board that the follow-up on the outstanding bond audit recommendations be done in the identified committees. Then I will touch base with Board Chair Wong to see what he would suggest. It would still be the responsibility of the Audit Committee to ensure that the recommendations of the bond audit would be implemented. So we would have to do periodic check-ins with the other committees.
Patty, I think that's a great idea.
Go ahead, Virginia.
Say maybe it is like a quarterly, the policy sounds like most of it would be with policy and with the Facilities Committee, but maybe we do like a quarterly update to the Audit Committee, the chairs of the committees. We could come and give you the information if that's helpful, some sort of routine.
That would be, yeah, that would be great. We could set that up. Either you could come to the audit committee, or the audit committee could come to you to hear your report.
I'm happy to come to you. That would make sense to come to, for me to come to the committee. I can't speak for
really cool because
Director DePass, but I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, that would be great, and especially since so many of the outstanding recommendations have to do with OSM. Yeah. Okay, thank you. We'll get that on our agendas. Yes, Chris.
I would love to hear from the community members first. Defer to you if that all sounds good to you, to exercise some strength we haven't in the past to make a recommendation to the full board. Does that feel okay?
You have a lot of expertise.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. I am not as familiar with these other committees. Could you describe what the makeup of them is?
Sure. I can, if that works,
Yeah,
just to
why
give
don't
you
you
a
do
break
that?
from talking.
Yes,
I know you want to. So, as Chair Sullivan mentioned earlier, one of the things that's unique about this committee is we have community members on it, right? The rest of the committees, including the one we keep pointing to Director Lafort about, is the Facilities Committee. It has a longer name, but if it's FIOC. I don't know. Let's call it Facilities. That committee consists of board members and then is staffed by the Office of School Modernization, as well as others in the facilities kind of side of the shop here at PPS. Meanwhile, Director Engelsman is a member of the Policy Committee, which is pretty much what it sounds like. It's where we review policies, make changes to policies, make new policies. They get developed at that committee, and then they go to the board, and the members are, I didn't say all the members of facilities. That's Director Chase Miller and Director DePass. And then the Policy Committee is Director Engelsman, Director Chase Miller, and Director DePass is the chair. So that's the two committees we're talking about that we would ask to tackle some of these recommendations and report back to us under what we're talking about now.
Great, thank you. That's helpful. I think that makes sense as long as we're getting that report back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'd have to oversee it, make sure it was done, and have people would be willing to report to us, or we could also go to their meetings,
Yeah.
or one of us could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily need to be a committee chair. Like, for example, Director Engelsman is on this committee and is also on policy, so she might be able to be the liaison if that works
Right.
for her, since she'll be here anyway. Yeah.
And you're the BAC.
I'm on the
And-
BAC, so I can report back from the BAC as needed. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
And I'm the liaison. The BAC, we're talking about the Bond Accountability Committee. I forgot to mention that one. That one's actually no board members are on it. I'm the liaison for it, but it's actually made up of experts in the fields related to the bond work that's being done. And it's an advisory committee for the staff specifically, and the board as well.
Sorry, troops.
Oh, you're all good.
And can everybody hear me now?
Yay, we sure can.
Hi. Yes, hi. This is Stephanie Engelsman. I didn't get to introduce myself early on because for some reason my settings on this phone were not allowing me to unmute myself. So I had a childcare kerfuffle that was sort of made worse by the fact that there were contractors in the house 3 weeks longer than they're supposed to be, and I didn't want to leave my kids in the house while the contractors were there. So I tuned in and then couldn't unmute myself, and now I am driving to the board meeting because the contractors left, the childcare arrived, and my unmute is working. So I should see everybody hopefully in about 10 minutes in person, but I have been listening the whole time. Thank you.
Oh, I'm glad you're listening. I was going to ask for a thumbs up if people think that's a good idea, but it sounds to me like you already have said yes.
I think so. And
You can keep your thumbs down.
the other thing is, one of your next steps was to talk to Chair Wong, who's actually here, which is very impressive because he was also up late 2 nights in a row because I saw him testifying at City Council last night after my bedtime. So I don't know if he wants to weigh in and say anything, or if not, just stay on mute, just listen in, and you two can talk later. But if it'd be helpful to just talk now, we could. But he's not coming off mute, so I'm assuming he would like us to not talk now.
Okay, I know he's watching his daughter's soccer game.
Oh, okay.
So
that
there might be a
explains
lot
it.
going on.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's what he's doing. Okay, yeah, I'll talk to him. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that support because it does seem like the best way to get these outstanding things taken care of with people who know what they're doing. Okay. The last thing I want to mention, and then we'll get to hear Janice talk, is about our contract with the external bond auditors, which expires in the spring of 2026. And we need to do a new request for proposals, the RFP for these services. Last year, when we went through this process for the external auditors who audit our financial statements, a couple of audit committee members were part of the panel who reviewed and scored the RFP. Last year, that was Caroline and myself. Caroline, as an auditor in your professional life, I think you are particularly qualified. And I'm hoping that you'd be willing to serve in that capacity again this year for the external bond audit. Does that sound good? Okay. I was the other audit committee member who participated in the process. This year I was thinking that I would like to offer my spot on the selection panel to the chair of the facilities committee or the board's liaison to the bond accountability committee. That's both of you. So if either of you would like to do that, you can let me know later. You don't have to now. And that just seems like the appropriate people to be on it. That would make a selection panel that would be Caroline. Is it Caroline or Carolyn?
Caroline.
Caroline, okay. Thought I could be saying it wrong. Janice, either Virginia or Christy, and the other members of the selection panel will be identified by PPS management. So we don't have any choice of that. This is not going to come up until the spring of 2026, so I just wanted to mention this is part of the work of the audit committee, and I will be providing you with more information as we go along.
Director
Yeah,
Fort and I
okay.
can fight to the death to see who gets to be on that committee when the
Duke it
time
out,
comes.
Chris.
Well, be careful. I don't want you injuring each other. Okay, let's move on to the next agenda item, which is the audit committee work plan and meeting agendas for the 25-26 year. I worked with Janice to put this together, but I have done so much talking so far that I am going to have Janice take over.
Thank you. Okay, in your packet of documents, the audit committee work plan and agenda meetings for the 25-26 school year is document number 3, if you want to take a look at it. What I did is I took the primary responsibilities of the audit committee and also the audit committee work plan for the year, and I made sure each element was popped into one of the audit committee meetings that we have scheduled. So, for example, one of the primary responsibilities of the audit committee is to provide oversight and support of the Office of Internal Performance Audit. So, what does that actually look like? That is, for example, the audit committee and internal performance audit charter needs to be reviewed and referred for approval if there's any edits necessary. The annual performance audit plan, the annual operating budget for the Office of Internal Performance Audit, and the auditor's annual performance evaluation. So for the charter review, last year we didn't build that into our work plan, so this year I made sure it's on the May 7th meeting date. So if you flip in your packet to the May 7th date, you will see that we have a section here to reflect on the audit committee's work for the 25-26 school year and review the policy and charter to consider any updates. And then another example, if you flip to the January or February meeting date, you will see that we included the discussion and approval of the 26-27 budget for the Office of Internal Performance Audit. So for each of the elements that are included in the primary responsibilities and the work plan I made sure they tied directly to an element in one of these meetings. And I'm pretty sure I got them all in there. And of course, that gives us a lot of work to do this year. In addition to putting each responsibility and work plan item in here, I also made notes in here about when potential action would be necessary from the audit committee. So for example, if you are looking at well, I already created a July one, just in case we ended up needing that. But one of the potential actions that needs to happen, that may need to happen, is referral of community members to the full board for appointment to the audit committee. If we haven't done that already, both Jennifer and Caroline's, they're on the second year of their 2-year term. So although I'm sure we would welcome them back, if they, we might need to add another one if anybody else needs a break. Okay, so that is everything that I put into the work plan and meeting agendas. If you want more details about the primary responsibilities of the audit committee, on the audit committee's website, there is a whole page that breaks down what does that look like and each of the elements. So just FYI, the website has been updated. Thank you, Kara, for helping me with that. But that's how I came up with popping all of these in. So feel free to take a look at it, and if you think I missed something or have any questions, send Patty an email and she will tell me what to do. Okay, well, I think that's all I got for that item. Are there any questions?
So if we think of things that should be added, we can call you.
Yes.
Or call me and I'll call you.
And also, on the agenda for each meeting, I built in a spot for our chair of the committee to ask the committee members if there are any requests for audit committee agenda items as part of our wrap up for each meeting. And I built that in just so we don't forget to ask each other that and take that into consideration if there are any suggestions.
I just have one tiny easy note that I was thinking about under the audit committee work plan. On item number 3, it says provides ongoing oversight of the implementation of recommendations. And I was wondering if it should say like implementation of recommendations from past audits. It's just like a way to be clear that we're not talking about just, I don't know what, but just to make it clear we're saying from, and then it includes all past audits. So I know we're working on, taking a look. We just talked about the contracts audit and still needing quite a bit of work there, oversight work there. So just want to make sure that we capture that it's not just current ones or the most recent one or something like that.
I will make an update to the page. Thank you for that feedback.
No, thank you so much. I love that we know it's coming. It's really nice to see this level of detail. Appreciate it.
When I was mentioning the little paragraph in this book about community members, I wanted to mention this whole thing is really good to read if you want to know about what auditors or the audit committee is supposed to do. Because I've been on the audit committee now, this is my 3rd year, and I'm still learning so much, and there's so much to learn. But this was really, pretty easy to read, almost fun to read. Maybe I'm becoming an auditor, I don't know.
Fill my heart.
Anyway,
Fun.
it was good reading. So that really helps too, in sort of knowing where we're going, what we're trying to do. Okay, thank you, Janice. Let's see. Really appreciate, and like, I think, I forget who said, that they love knowing what was coming up. I feel the same way. Okay, move on to the next agenda item, and that's the discussion of the OIPA audit plan and discussion on new audit topics, which is what I'm looking forward to. Janice, can you go over this?
Yes, thank you. Okay, in your packet, this document is the item marked number 4 for you at the top. So I just wanted to start by giving you the current status of the audits that are already approved. So the first one is the English language learners. And the current status on that is I actually sent the draft report to staff today. So when I was working on putting this document together, I knew it would be this week, but it was today. So just FYI, that what will happen is we send it to the staff first, and we give them an opportunity to review the audit report and look to see if they have any feedback for us. And these are the staff that we work directly with. And we also send them a list of every single item and that we identified as, a concern, and they get an opportunity to review that and make sure we didn't miss anything. And then once that's done, we will meet with them and go over those and then move the report on to management, PPS management, so they will have an opportunity to also give us some feedback, and then they'll have a chance to include management's response into the audit report, and that is also included into the actual audit report. So when it comes to the audit committee, it will include management's response as well. The next audit that we're working on right now is the Measure 98 audit. So we're about 2/3 of the way done with our testing here. And so we anticipate this will probably be ready for the audit committee in the January or February committee meeting. And if you look at your meeting agendas, you'll see that I did pop that report in there for that agenda in anticipation of that. I also just wanted to mention that the Secretary of State's Audit Division did a state level audit on Measure 98 in this last year. So I did reach out to their audit team to talk about what they included, and more specifically what they did not include in their audit. And so we kind of tweaked our scope just a little bit to focus on the things that they did not include in their audit, so we're not duplicating any of their work. The next audit.
Can I ask a question about that one really quickly?
Yes.
Since you're going to be kind of relying on the findings from that state level audit, would you be willing to provide like a summary of kind of the high level findings or something within hours so that we can kind of know what those findings were versus just skipping them?
Good
Would that be
idea.
reasonable? Okay.
Thank you for that feedback.
Thank you. Appreciate all the work you do.
I have to write it really quick. Okay. Yes. All right. The next audit that we already have approved is the building security audit. So for this audit, we have done all of the background research and identified criteria and created an expectation of generally what would we expect to see out as a security plan out in the buildings. And then what we will do is ask the district for their building security plans for each of the buildings that, and we're not going to test all of them, but we will test some of them. And then we'll go out on site and look to see that the district is complying with the building security plan that we have already, that is already our plan. We'll just be testing to make sure we follow through with the things that we said that we will do. For this audit, we anticipate approximately getting started on this in January or February. And also for this audit, I do plan to reach out to the student representative to the board to try to arrange some student engagement so we can hear from students about how they feel about building security in their schools. So we will do our very best to incorporate that and hear from our students when it comes to that. And I will work with our student representative to try to make that happen. Okay, and if you look at your agenda listing, I've already popped that in for May meeting because that's approximately when we anticipate that will be ready. The next audit is the Career and Technical Education Program Audit. Since this audit was approved, the CTE program has developed and implemented a strategic plan. And I recently met with the director of CTE and Pathways to gain an understanding of their strategic plan. Based on kind of an updated understanding of where the CTE program is, we would suggest rescoping the audit. So what that would look like is, because we were initially planning to look at accessibility, access to different CTE programs throughout the district. So like, are there schools that don't have access to specific programs? Well, in their strategic plan for CTE, it clearly identifies, like page 4, where each program is at. So I think it's very comprehensive summary of where everything is, and it's pretty easy to see which schools do not include programs and which schools do include programs. So I really don't think that would be the best use of our time to do a full audit. However, when I was talking to the director of CTE, I got some really good ideas in that discussion. So what I would like to have is an opportunity to follow up with him and try to come up with a scope of an audit that would really add value to the work that's already being done. So my plan, if that's okay with you guys, is to bring an updated scope to proposal to the November 6th audit committee, and I'll go over that with you at that time. I still think there's a lot of value in doing a CTE audit. I just want to make sure that we're spending our time on items that are really going to add value. Does that make sense?
Yeah, did Chris have some ideas about what would be useful?
I'm sure he does.
Okay, yeah, that would be the...
Yeah, I mean, and he was very receptive to being audited, which was really exciting. He said, you know, he welcomes an audit anytime, so that was very refreshing. Okay, so that's what we already have planned and kind of when you'll expect to see them come across the audit committee this year. So, in addition to that, we would like to get some approval on our next set of audits to add to our audit plan. We need the approval on the audit topics so we can begin gathering the necessary research and criteria over the course of the year so we can start on these audits in the 26-27 school year. So for today, what I am hoping for is that we can narrow down the list of the audit topic ideas that I included to maybe 3 or 4. For the 3 or 4 topics, we will take those and build out a formal audit plan proposal to bring it back to the audit committee in its next meeting for approval. Between now and the next meeting, I really need to make sure and circulate the audit topics with PPS management team and the leadership team to make sure and get their feedback on which audits do they think would be of value and that information, and I'll include that in my plan proposal, and we will be able to talk about it in our next meeting and take all of that information into account and ideally arrive at 2 audits to add to the audit plan. Just as a side note, it does require the full board's approval to add audits to the audit plan. So the audit committee, ideally on the 6th, will refer the selected audits to the full board for approval. So now we can talk a little bit about each of these audit topic ideas. What I did is I emailed out to all of the board members, including those who are not on the audit committee, and I sent it to our student representative and of course our community member representatives on the audit committee, and I asked for input. What I sent was a complete list of all of the audit topic ideas that have been suggested or have been talked about over the last few years here in the audit committee. And I asked for input on each. So for any of the audit topic ideas that were on that list and no one said, I'm interested in this one, those audits are not on this list. So I pulled those out to kind of shorten it down to just the ones that received some interest. And I listed in here the level of interest. As a side note, 3 was the most interest any one audit topic got. So when you're kind of looking to see at the level of interest, 3 was the most. So why don't we just kind of start with the teacher absences and sub-protocols. I listed there some of the notes of the risks and potentially the why we would consider doing this type of audit. And I included some notes and comments and also like OIPA's perspective on what this audit would look like. So, for example, in the teacher absences and sub-protocol audit, I just want to point out that we really want to make sure and be careful with the communication and messaging around this audit. I could see a risk there that we just want to make sure that the audit does not, we want to make clear that the audit is not an attempt at restricting legally protected leave, but I think there is a way to do it without making it feel that way. So I put my ideas in there and what I thought we could do. And do you guys want to talk about it do you want to talk about the pros and cons of that one and then move to the next one, or you want me to just talk about the next one?
Does anyone have thoughts on approach? I'm fine just going through them kind of one by one if that works for people.
All right.
I'm one of the ones who suggested this one. I actually did a terrible job of responding to your email, as Janice knows, and now you'll all know because I'm going to be like really excited about one I didn't even say anything to her about. But this one is one that I wanted to put on here, and it really has almost nothing to do with the teacher absences part and more to do with like how we respond to them. We know we've had a dramatic uptick in teacher absences. It does seem anecdotally to be linked to the new Oregon paid leave law, which is an amazing law that I don't want to be in a position of questioning. It's more like, how do we adapt to a world in which a career path that is predominantly women, whether we want to see more men in the career or not, it's predominantly women who are often caretakers of both children and aging family members as they evolve through their careers. And paid family leave allows you to both take time off to care for sick relatives, as well as care for children. It has a pretty broad definition of family, for example. So you have people who are in a caring profession and therefore probably caregivers in other ways in their lives. And of course, it's affecting us as a district. And so to me, I think it's more about like taking a look at what other places have done to mitigate some of that. For example, I was just at a conference where we heard from Nashville Public Schools, and one of their priorities has been having somebody who works full-time in their schools that's sort of the first line of like unexpected absences. So if there's no unexpected absences in that building, there's somebody who can be working with small groups, whatever, like they make use of them throughout the day. But then if there are unexpected absences, or there's like a long-term absence in a classroom where that person might be the best fit, then they can use that person to kind of be like a person that can be that long-term sub in the case of a longer-term absence. And it just makes a lot of sense to have somebody who knows the community, knows the kids, knows the other staff, right? So what if we looked at other places and how they deal with having, you know, subs, especially since we have significantly more than we did prior to the implementation of the law. So I just wanted to share what I put forward, why I think it's important, and really suggest that if we did do this, other than maybe just setting it up as in there's been a dramatic uptick, here's what it looks like, not necessarily trying to prevent people from taking their earned leave, which to me is really problematic. So I think that's what you're putting down. So I just want to make sure it's clear, as one of the people who recommended it. It would be more like, how do we adjust our work to accept a new reality?
Yes, that's one that was important to me too. And when I was looking at our website, when was it? About 2012 or something, there was an audit done about that. And there were all sorts of recommendations, which I don't think anything has, were done. Yeah, but there's probably another way to do it. And I mean, Janice can look at that one and see, could we do a better way or a different way or something that would make more sense?
Yeah, so we did do just a little bit of background research, and I think looking at potentially California school districts, they implemented a leave program similar to paid Oregon leave quite a few years before we did. So perhaps they might have some strategies that they're utilizing as a tool, part of their HR strategy to help address this. Not sure, but I do think that we could look for that. And I've also heard of incentive programs. So I would be very interested in doing the research on that to see if there's any opportunity to make some recommendations that might help us with our strategy.
And is that really an audit, or is that just looking at more different ideas, or are they the same?
So it is considered a performance audit, and we would follow generally accepted audit GAGAS. Hold on. Generally accepted government auditing standards for the full report. So regardless of the kind of the layout or the context, we're still going to follow the audit standards to present all of the work. So you'll be able to rely on it, knowing that we followed all of the standards to arrive at a recommendation if that's what we do.
I think that I would suggest that there be a little bit more clarification up front about what sort of performance improvement recommendation measures we could take. So what I'm hearing is we are not, of course, going to in any way try to impede into people taking their legal right. I'm not sure, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, but like how having another person in the building doesn't reduce the amount of leave that people would take, right? So are we actually trying to get at mitigating learning loss, and how do we maximize instructional time in light of a new circumstance?
That's really what we're
Yes.
wanting to do, I think.
That is great. And, you know, that's kind of the thought behind tacking on the sub-protocols to the kind of the name of the audit, because perhaps that might be the avenue that would help mitigate learning loss in that situation. But I'll be watching this meeting back to listen to exactly what Jennifer said to write down.
Yes.
Thank you.
That means.
Jennifer, I'll just give you an
Yeah.
example of something I've noticed, and you've been touring even more schools, but I've started touring some schools, and very often you'll go into a classroom and the principal will see there's a sub there and literally be like, ooh, okay, well, let's move on. And it's like, because they know that the likelihood of like learning or something interesting to see happening is reduced. And we have wonderful subs, right? But we also have ones that show up and there might not be subplans or name all the reasons. And so I just think I think a lot of us have experienced as parents or going into schools that we just have some work to do if we're going to have more subs, how do we help those subs be more prepared? Right? Like, doesn't it? Yeah. So I guess that's what I'm getting at. But it has been sort of almost funny now that I think I've gone to 3 schools and literally, like, you see a sub and they're like, okay, let's go. And it's like, okay. So.
Yeah, it seems like the increase in absences is more of the context, and the audit would not be of the absences. We just have to be clear that would be on what we're doing to address that. Sub protocol probably highly in there.
Okay, do you want to, so I'll talk about the next one, let you know what we have listed here. So, support system for principals. This was an idea that came from the Secretary of State's Audit Division. They did an audit of the Oregon Department of Education and PPS, and they issued that audit report in 2019. You know, that audit report indicated that the board should ensure that the district's strategy plan addresses challenges in the organizational culture, including the division between central administrators, principals, and teachers. So this one was the one that got 3 yeses. So this is the one that seems to have a lot of interest here. So I wanted to just kind of mention the timing of this might actually be really good right now. You know, we're aware that the district has done a variety of work in this area already over the last few years. Specifically, in 2021, PPS was one of 8 U.S. schools that were selected for a grant, the Wallace Foundation grant, and the purpose of that grant was very specifically to build an equity-centered pipeline for hiring and training principals. In part, the Wallace Foundation grant funding allowed PPS to focus on preparing and training principals with tools and strategy to promote racial equity, strategically recruiting and hiring equity-centered principal candidates, and fostering inclusive environments that will set up principals for success in the long term. So when the district is undergoing work, a multi-year process to address a problem, it's generally not a good idea to try to go in and do an audit midway. However, I'm pretty sure that the 25-26 school year is year 5 of the 5-year grant from the Wallace Foundation. So if we were approving it now, and we wouldn't start on it until next year, so that last year would have been wrapped up, and we would be able to take a look at, you know, kind of the results of all of the time and effort that the district has invested over the last few years into addressing this very specifically. Any questions, or y'all want to talk about this one?
I guess I'll just give a nod that I feel like this would be good. I love the idea of kind of celebrating some success, because my guess is that if we looked at sort of the issues we were having with retention of principals, that's probably improved over the past several years. So I think it'll be a good pulse check on something that's been a priority that the district has worked hard on. So I think it's a good idea. I love that multiple people are interested in it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and also it would show maybe there's areas they still want to work on, because I'm sure they know they haven't reached utopia yet, but yeah, I think that's a really good one.
So I'm gonna, I know Director LaForde has come off video, so I want to make sure she can say something, but I'm gonna
take an opposite approach and say if we, out of these 8 or so great-looking audit suggestions, can only pick 2 or 3, I'm not sure that I would want to focus on what is hopefully going to be a feel-good story and maybe just find some things to work harder on or more on, because I think this, the teacher absences one is getting some support. I really like looking at the student performance measures and frankly somehow blending it with the summer expanded program, because that are both student performance measures. And then I am also really interested in number 8, which is looking at the contract. And so if there's so many great ones, I think the work needs to stay focused on finding what we can do to make the district even better. I love the idea of a feel-good story, but I'm not sure that I want to.
I never get to do feel-good
I know, but if we only can, you can do all 8. But if
I'm
we can
just
only do
teasing,
2 or
just
3,
teasing.
that's my thought process.
I was going the same place Stephanie is. I wonder, and I don't really know, you might be following some principles in developing this document. I wonder for each of the points if we're going to try, or potential audits, if we're going to try to make a decision next time, if we can add a section about how the audit and the recommendations would positively impact the outcomes for the board goals, particularly for the student performance measures. That if we tied it to working toward the specific goals that are set for the district.
That's a great idea, and I jotted that down. So so we're gonna pick 3 or 4 today, and then I'm gonna do a bunch more work to build out an actual proposal to really identify what will our objectives be, and I will also include how the audit and potential recommendations would make an impact on student outcomes. So that's great. I'll make sure and include that element in the proposal when it comes back to you guys next time. This document was very high level just to get the conversation going and see what the level of interest is here. But this is not a formal audit plan proposal, and you will get something much more formal and well put together when we come back.
Definitely didn't mean they should have been there. I meant as we make the decision. Yeah.
Yes.
So, Virginia, I see your hand up.
I learned to raise my hand. So I just wanted to, I was laughing when Director Engelsman was talking because I was like, they're going to think we're coordinating or something, because she basically said exactly what I was thinking. I was looking at student performance measures and thinking about how some of the other things on this list, would they be captured, like the summer expanded program offerings, our personal services contracts to support our students, would the results of those programs be captured in the student performance measures audit, or could they be in some way? And I think when you emailed us asking for our input, I have a feeling, I was just going back to my emails and I was like, God, I think I sent back my ideas and then didn't actually go into your spreadsheet. So I'm wondering, when I see the level, is it that only 3 people responded to?
No. More people responded.
Okay. I was like, I know I responded.
No, and I definitely got your very long email. Thank you very much for that. Even though it wasn't on the form, I certainly got the feedback that you were sending my way.
But yeah, I really like the student performance measures one on here. I feel like I would love to have one of our selections, directly, tied to our board goals. I mean, everything, of course, it has a place, but when I see something like this, I'm like, okay, how are we doing?
Great. Well, why don't we start talking about the student performance measures?
Really quick before.
Pardon?
I wanted to just say something really quick about
go
the
ahead.
principles, because normally I would be very much like wanting an audit that's really focused on, more directly like what is best for students. But as a parent, I know that like the principal can really have a huge impact in a school. So I would also put my support behind this one, even if it's not as a direct connection.
Okay. All right. So student performance measures. And just, you know, we don't get to pick all of these guys. I'm sorry. Okay, so for student performance measures, I would really like just to bring some attention to, I'll call her out. Caroline gave me some great feedback on this one. So when we looked and talked about this one specifically, what her suggestion was to break this topic out into a series of audits, one on each of the board goals. So I really like that idea. Sometimes there's this thing called audit scope creep, and it is so incredibly hard to stay focused on just the one thing that you're working on. As you go through the work, you kind of see something else, and it's like squirrel. No, but seriously, like, it is very difficult if we were to do a full student performance measure audit that would be inclusive of pretty much all of the goals. I do think it was an excellent idea to suggest breaking them down into a series of audits. So, and I really like that idea of a series of audits because there's a little bit of consistency in that work, which would help us be more efficient in turning audits around. So if we did one on this board goal this year, we would know that we're going to do a series, and so the next year we would work on the next one, or something along that way, or along that process. Just kind of my personal thoughts about how potentially this type of audit would really work best. And I really appreciate, by the way, having another auditor on this committee because, you know, like the feedback she gives me is just really spot on and would really help make sure that we stay focused and not take too long on delivering reports. So that's kind of my overall thoughts about the student performance measures audit. Do you guys want to share your thoughts? Sounds like y'all already shared some thoughts, but what do you think?
Can I just ask a question? So Janice and I were talking about having some, because the student, as originally pulled together, it seems like so much, like just a huge scope. And it also really seems related to what I hope is a board sort of strategic plan where we are regularly getting updates that cover some of this content in other ways. So I was a little bit like, is this something we can do outside of an audit? Is that what we're aiming for with like a strategic plan? So I was like, that was kind of my thought on it, is like, I'd rather this be like instead of us having an audit that happens a year and a half or 2 years from now, because we already have the audits for this year booked out, something we start doing sooner in a different way. So that was just like my initial thought on it. But I do want to share that I of course like the idea very much, and I think that tying it to the board goals and making it more compact makes sense, because what we were talking about, what I started out getting at, was like having some audits that are like a little bit more like, we're going to look at this thing and it's like pretty tightly defined, would help you have some projects that can be a little faster to get done. Mm-hmm. So I like the idea of breaking it out if we do. I mean, I'm not going to fall on my sword about thinking we should do it sooner in a different way so that we can do it sooner. But I'd be fine with doing an audit down the road with it too. But I love the idea of breaking it up to make it so that it's something that could be done in bite-sized pieces. I also wouldn't mind if it became like a series where it wasn't like once a year we're doing one, but because this is so urgently important, and if we can't find another way to do it, then maybe it becomes like we do them two or three or even four, like as depending on how that bite size works out.
That makes sense.
Okay, I just want to say I promised we'd be through by 6:30, so we're going to have to
Okay,
move.
we gotta get through, sorry. Okay, the next one is school audits. So there are a variety of internal controls that are performed out at the school buildings where the district office doesn't provide much, if any, oversight of those things that are taking place there. So for example, leave approval, that is all done out at the school. And there are a lot of risks associated with leave, like comparing actual leave to what was approved and making sure all of the leave hours were properly accounted for. And that's all taking place out at the building, which is awesome and great, but it would be a really good idea to take a look at the school-based internal controls. In addition to, looking at the district level, there are some that are very siloed out at the schools. When we did the student body funds audit, one of the things that we noticed is each school seems to have their own way of doing things, which is also okay. But one of the things we noticed is some of them have great tools. Like one school has this very fabulous worksheet, and I would love just to be able to send that to each school and be like, hey, look, this is a great worksheet. And so I would like to really consider doing a series of school audits where we do a couple of schools each year, and look at the internal controls for things that are just done at the school. Another topic that was pretty popular whenever I was at Seattle School District was the nutrition. And there were concerns about, student access to vending machines and not necessarily the most healthiest choices that may not necessarily align with our overall district nutrition plan. So that would be one of the things that we could look at out at each school. Another item that we could look at is field trip approvals. So I think for the ones that come to the board, they are dialed in. They go through all the review process, and but for the ones that don't have to come to the board, I just don't know what the visibility is and the oversight procedures for approving and making sure they're properly chaperoned, etc. So that would be something that we could look at out at the schools. Additionally, student body funds. So when we did the student body funds audit, we did provide some recommendations. And also, one of the things that we noticed, that we made note of when we talked about the implementation of the recommendations of the student body funds audit, we talked about this last year. And one of the things we talked about is that they don't have staffing for them to go out and do their own school site mini audits. That was something that was done in the past, and an FTE was cut from their department. And so I really think there would be value in perhaps the internal audit department kind of picking up a little bit of that slack by including a check-in on student body funds as one element of a school site-based audit. So those are my thoughts. Oh, sorry, one more thing. A lot of school district internal auditors have a mandate to do school-based audits on a regular basis. So that was something in Seattle School District, that was a mandate. They wanted us to do at least one school-based audit on internal controls that are at the schools every year. That doesn't have to be the case, but that is the case sometimes, and we don't really have a mandate. Sorry, we don't really have a mandate for our internal audit department that says we expect this, this, and this, which is also okay because it allows us the freedom to, come up with audit topic ideas based off risk and feedback and input, where it's not prescribed that we have to do the same thing every year. So there's value in both, but I just wanted to mention that a lot of internal audit departments do have a mandate. Like, for example, some of the school districts in Florida, I went to a conference last year in Florida, and I got to meet a bunch of internal auditors at different Florida-based school districts, and they have a mandate to do building security audits every year. So that is just part of their routine. Every year, they do X number. Of course, their internal audit departments are significantly bigger than what we have, so of course we need to keep that in mind, which is also okay. But I just wanted to give you an example of something that, you know, sometimes school audits are mandated every year, and sometimes like a security audit, but we don't have that, which is okay. But just wanted to throw that out there so you would kind of have an idea of how comparable we are with other internal audit departments.
And so you do like 3 schools one year, 3 schools the next year? Okay.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next one. So this is the results of the 2021 Summer Expanded Programming offerings. And just to be very clear, we're really not interested in going back to 2021 specifically, but an audit of our summer program offerings more broadly. Sounds like a really good idea to see if what the results are of the summer programming and whether or not it makes sense to invest more potentially in summer programming depending on how the outcomes look. But that is kind of the thought behind this topic. When this was requested initially, it was in 2022. So that's why the 2021 was listed. But, you know, perhaps looking at summer programming, you know, over the course of a few years might be a good idea to see what the outcomes are comparatively. But I did put in here what the audit that was suggested, but I wanted just to clarify that we're really not looking to look at 21 specifically, but a little bit more broadly about the impact of summer programming.
So how do you actually do that? You take the kids that went to summer school compared to kids that didn't go to summer school in the same class? That
I'm not exactly sure, but I will build out, if this is what you guys want,
Yeah.
I'll build out a proposal on how we would go about. And I'll have to do some more research and talk to people about what data is available and look to see how we could come up with an audit that would add value. Okay. The next one is the incident response procedures and communication. So when students come to me and ask for an audit, I really do my best to try to at least bring it forward and mention it to see if there's interest in doing it. So in this situation, 2 students who stated that they were aware of what they considered a significant security threat on campus, and they were not provided any communication from the school about what happened or what was going to happen to make sure it didn't happen again. And they were wondering, you know, does the district have a formal policy and administrative directive about what communications is expected to students when there is an incident out at the schools? So this did not get a lot of interest, which is okay, but I definitely wanted to mention it and bring it forward because it is my practice to try to bring forward audits that are requested from students. It doesn't happen very often, so when they do actually come to me and say, we'd like an audit of this, I do my best to be responsive to that. One thing that I wanted to mention is that during the current year, we are going to be looking at the building security audit. And during that audit, we do plan to do some engagement with students, and that might be an opportunity to hear more about this potential communication concern that they may have. So from my perspective, I think it might be a good idea for this one to let us do the building security audit and then kind of gauge with the student engagement what they're just learn a little bit more about the protocols and stuff like that, and then potentially consider it in a future year. Okay, next one is the complaints process. So the complaints process policy was updated in 2023. And one of the things that I've noticed is that I don't see complaints coming to the board as often anymore than we did a few years ago. It really wasn't uncommon to see on the board agenda or a special meeting to take into consideration of complaints. So maybe that's because we have no complaints, which would be awesome, right? But it also could be representative of something else. So, you know, the complaints data is of value to the board members. When I was chatting about this one specifically with Patty, she did let me know that you guys get emails sometimes saying there's no complaints or something. I'm just not privy to that communication. So I'm not sure exactly how it works, or but it does potentially sound like there is some communication flow. So that makes me feel better, because not seeing it consistently and then having it kind of go away did make me question like what's going on. And maybe we're just doing it in a different way, which would be okay, but it might not. I mean, I don't know. So that's why it's listed. Okay. Then the last one is a contracts and contract management audit. And, you know, I did get a really strong recommendation to consider this type of audit. And, you know, I really see that, and I hear the communication that you guys have in your board members, or in your board meetings. I listen and I take notes on things that you're talking about, and I do see your interest in our contracts here at PPS. So I wanted to present it because it was suggested, but I also want to say that we did do a contracts audit back in 2020, and we issued those, and we still have quite a few recommendations that are outstanding. So it would be my preference to try to work on the implementation of those before we started in on the topic again. But it has been 5 years, so maybe that's what you guys want. So I'm just throwing it out there. So that is all of the ones that were suggested.
And you need to narrow it down to like 3?
3, the max is 4.
And then you'll work on it,
Yep.
take it to staff as well to look at, to see if it's
And then when we come it back, you're only going to get to pick 2.
in November.
Yes.
So if we can do 4, so should everybody just think of 4 they like and we'll look? Does that sound reasonable? So let's take a minute to. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Director Sullivan, I do want to add too, as I'm going through these, and I've been working hard as Janice's staff contact to make sure that we're a little bit more in sync, because I'm aware of other audits and reviews that are happening throughout the district consistently, whether it's federal programs, nutrition services, student transportation. Like there are audits and reviews, assessments happening all the time on top of these things that we are asking Janice to do. So I want to help provide some visibility to you for those. So just to add assurance and not have duplication of effort if we already have a third party coming in and doing reviews on what's already required by statute.
Great. Can you do that with these?
I can for some. I can connect with some reports that are already being compiled. For example, any summer programming, we're tracking that data. And some of it may already be coming back to the board in a more general format, like just a staff report. So I just want to share that with you, that we want to be in concert so that for the limited resources we have on performance auditing, that they are truly on those areas that aren't being thoroughly reviewed already by another party.
Is there any, are there others besides the summer one that are on this list? That, I mean, I know the contracts is, we're doing contracts.
Yeah, we're doing the contract ones, but we do have a certain level of testing that happens as part of our annual comprehensive report. And so that comes to you ultimately as well, and they would note findings if we were out of compliance with policy. So I just want to bring that to you guys so that you have an additional layer of assurance, and so that our internal performance auditors can be really targeted. You know, I think one of the challenges has been to bring a report and get in the recommendations implemented, because they've been a little bit broad. And I just want to make sure that you guys know there are other things happening, and we're starting to gather a repository of information to share with you.
And I will add to that just this last week or two, when I was having my regular check-in meetings with Michelle, she was talking about that. And I got so excited because this is one of the things I've been trying, I would really appreciate knowing about. Like, there are a lot of, like, ODE will do like a desk audit or desk review of some programs or whatever, and I just don't have any visibility into that currently. But it sounds like Michelle is going to start gathering that and is willing to share that. So that would be very helpful for me to come and suggest and propose audits that would be, more meaningful and potentially of more value. One of the things that I plan to talk about a little bit later, but time is ticking, is about a formal risk assessment. So one of the procedures that we're really required to do by audit standards is a formal risk assessment. And currently, to date, we have really been relying on the risk assessment that was done back in 2016. Also, I've really been leaning into the Secretary of State's audit report to help identify risks here. So it really is time for us to actually put together our own risk assessment, and that will be a lot of work. But one of the ways that will, by what she said would be so helpful, is because I would be able to gain an understanding of all the different types of things going on in the different departments that would help me know what risks are mitigated based off of some of the other types of procedures that are being done by other auditors, or maybe not auditors, but other program evaluators necessarily, or something like that. So when we chatted about that, I was very excited about that, and the timing is really good, because it is my goal for the next time I come to you guys to talk about audit proposal topics, that I'll have done a risk assessment to have a little bit more of a basis for why am I suggesting these audits.
Yeah, I have two things to say. One, I have to leave, but I've signed back on already to be present again. Sorry. We've had some childcare issues, as I said earlier. For this number 8, while I find it very interesting, and I've circled it and starred it, I also wonder whether it's not better suited as a board agenda or work session report to understand how, and I understand we had COVID, but if there was this contracts audit done almost 5.5 years ago, and there are 20 recommendations, 11 of which have not been implemented, to just sort of understand what obstacles there may be to not implementing those final 11, or, you know, because that feels more like a work session or board meeting agenda item rather than another audit to me.
And
But
I think we're like, I think you're on it, because Dr. Adams was supposed to be here tonight, rescheduled instead for October
I heard that
20th
at the
board
very
meeting
beginning.
to talk
Okay.
about just this.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
oh, this is all wrapped up in his report that was, okay.
Potentially. So
Perfect.
it
I
is.
would like that to be wrapped up.
Yeah.
Not on mic. I would like that to be wrapped up in that report.
I do anticipate the report that he's working on will be the evidence that we're looking for to demonstrate the district has implemented some of the recommendations, but there are I do not anticipate that it would cover all of the outstanding recommendations, but I do think it's going to cover 2 of the big ones, so that would be a great win. But one of the things that I'll get to really quickly, because I know we have to go, but in my annual report, I am asking the audit committee for some additional support in relationship to the implementation of the contracts audit recommendations specifically. It has been our practice to ask the management to come and give us updates on the status of the implementation of recommendations annually. But our charter does allow for us to do that quarterly. So I'm asking for the audit committee to request that quarterly. And in anticipation that you guys would be super supportive of that, I already popped that into our meeting agendas. So you will see a lot, we will have, management come to talk about these pretty consistently this year. And I'm fingers crossed. I really anticipate this year we're going to get these dialed in.
Okay, I'll be joining back on Zoom. I'm so sorry, everybody.
Okay. Well, and I promised you we'd be through at 6:30,
Well, no,
and
it's-
I had no idea it would go so long. So good discussion.
I'll be present the whole time, just in person.
Okay. Well, you need to get 4.
Yep, I need 4, please.
So we could talk about it forever, I think. So I just really would like everybody to choose 4. And then we'll vote and see which 4 gets the most. I can't think of a better way.
Okay.
Unless somebody can.
Okay.
Just like each one, see how many votes it gets.
Yeah, and then that's it, yeah.
Okay.
So, take a minute.
Teacher,
I need a
let's
minute.
start with teacher absences and sub-protocols.
Okay, wait, I'm still getting my top 4. Okay. Okay.
We get 4 votes, yeah?
Yeah, we get 4.
Okay, so.
Okay.
You get to vote on 4, is that what we're doing? Okay.
Yes, let me make sure you've got 4 chosen, because I'm not sure I do. Okay. All right. Okay, number 1, teacher absences. I guess, raise your hand, I guess. Or show, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Stephanie
What
raised
about
her,
Stephanie?
yeah,
4?
she raised her hand.
Okay.
Okay.
Nice work, good job, Director.
5.
But
Yeah.
I just want to, again, suggest we might entirely reframe this as support for subs.
Okay.
It
Thank
just-
you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
so we got 5 votes for that one. What about the support system for principals?
Okay, raise your hand for number 2, support system. 1, 2,
4.
other 4.
Stephanie, no? Okay. All right. The student performance measures via the series of audits, okay. 4 plus Stephanie, so that's 5. Okay. School audits, any interest? Yes. 2. 2, okay. Results of summer programming. 1. Okay. The incident.
And Director Englesman made it 2 for that one as well.
Oh, okay, thank
2
you.
for
Sorry, I
7.
missed her. The incident response procedures.
Actually, I put my hand down. I put it up and then I changed my mind because we only get 3 or 4 of these. So do not count me in that one, please.
Okay, I'm removing you from that one. Okay, incident response procedures and communication. Okay.
I should have said this earlier. I meant to chime in and say there's 2 of them. This one might be one of them that I wonder if we refer to the policy committee, of which I'm on, because if we don't have a policy about how things are reported to students, and I imagine it can be very worrisome to students when they know something is going on and they also know that information is perhaps being kept from them. This feels like perhaps start with the policy committee, and someone tell me if I'm just missing something here, but maybe that's where this goes. And if we have a policy, we look at it, and does it still make sense? And if we don't have a policy, we look at that and think whether we need one.
Oh, that's a great idea. I'll look it up to see what our policy is. And if we do, or if we don't, I will follow up with an email on this one to the chair of our policy committee, based off of whatever I come up with. So even though maybe there's not a lot of interest in doing that, maybe it might be something the audit committee could take up. Or not.
And
the
I
audit
think
committee,
that
the policy
applies.
committee.
I'll speak up when we get to the one that I think this also applies to.
Okay, next one for thoughts is the complaints process. 1. All right. Last one is the contract management one. Okay. Even the person that sent it to me is not voting. That's okay. Okay, so I think I hear what you're saying. So we definitely have interest in the potential support for sub-protocols, support system for principals, student performance measures.
And then we have a hand up for Director Englesman.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks. I realized that we must have skipped the other one that I wanted to bring up as potentially belonging in the policy committee. And it is I think it's under the school audits one, which I couldn't see how many hands went up, but the board policy for out-of-state travel is on the Monday agenda for potentially being changed. And if there isn't board policy on how schools, individual schools, work on both accepting leave requests, and which the leave requests might also be looped into the sub one and the first one, like those seem very connected. But if there isn't a board policy currently on just local travel and how that's approved, perhaps that belongs in the policy committee as well. Maybe we don't need a policy on it, but it could be something that the policy committee could take on, similar to the other one I thought could end up in the policy committee.
Okay, I'll reach out to you also next week to kind of hear a little bit more about suggestions for the policy committee, because I think you've got some great ideas, and I would love to hear a little bit more. So I'll reach out to you next week for
Sounds
a little
great,
bit
thanks.
more details about which you think maybe could go to the policy for consideration. So, okay, well, I think that we have 3 strong support for the first 3. The teacher absences and sub-protocols, the support system for principals, and student performance measures. Then the kind of support drops off a little bit for the remaining ones. So do you guys want to pick one more for me to build out, or just go with the 3 and just know you only get to pick 2 of the 3?
I just have a quick question for Michelle. Did you just say we're already looking at the summer learning stuff, or did I mishear you?
No, I know for the Oregon grant, which I don't know that PPS was a recipient of.
Not
but
this year, but we were in past
yeah,
years.
I know that we keep all of that student data, and so it's more of a program request to say, how did our summer program go? How are those students doing currently? I feel like those are valid questions for our instructional leaders that they would probably love the chance to share that information.
Anyway, I just wanted to clarify because I think that might inform the rest of the conversation.
Will you say once more what the top 3 were?
So, the
1, 2,
first
3.
thing-
Okay,
1, 2,
thank you.
3. Yeah. Okay. I think I heard the direction, so I will do a bunch of research and come back with a proposal, and then you'll get to pick 2 of those.
I wonder how close the student performance one, I wonder how close was that in interest, or was it very low? That just seems so linked to board goals and district goals and everything that I wonder why what I'm missing on that one, that how close was it?
Student performance measures got a 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was one
Oh,
of
that's
the,
one of the 3 that we're talking about.
right.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have that obviously in front of me and I missed that name. Perfect. I'm glad it's there. Thank you.
It was most popular.
Yeah. Okay. So that wraps up our conversation in relationship to this topic. We are out of time.
I know.
So
Gosh.
can I just get 2 minutes just to say a little something here? For the overview of the Office of Internal Performance Audit, and the attached policy and charter, essential conditions, I have met individually with each of you guys to go over this information in detail, and for the newer board members, specifically Stephanie and Christy, I sat down with you guys this summer and we did a full hour of talking about internal auditing here. So I have included all of the documentation, and if you guys have any questions about any of the topics, please just give me a call and we'll talk about it. If you're wondering what I would like to point out as something that's super important, that would be the list of essential conditions. And in that list of essential conditions, there are board identified essential conditions. So if you have time to spend a little extra time reading this, focus in on the board essential conditions, and please feel free to reach out to me if you want to talk about any of them in specific. Okay.
And Janice, you also, can you very, very briefly go over the audit report web pages?
The audit
the things that
report
were finished?
is document number, or not the audit, the annual report is document number 10 in your packet. So I kind of buried the lead earlier where I mentioned that I was asking for additional support from the audit committee in relationship to this. So in the annual audit report, if you flip to page 4 of 6, this is a section that I want to talk about because last year I didn't include this section in this report because at that time I didn't feel like we had any significant outstanding recommendations. But this year we do. So I am just drawing attention to some of the outstanding recommendations in the contracts audit and asking for some additional support by getting quarterly reporting on that. And I preemptively popped that into the agendas already. Another thing that we didn't have in here last year that we have in here this year is the auditee feedback survey. So thank you to Director Sullivan for taking the time to reach out to all of the staff that we worked with for all of the previous audits. So she did all of them for the last 5 years, so we got up to date, and she summarized that information and provided it to me. One of the issues we had last year about doing this type of survey is we couldn't figure out a way for it to remain anonymous. So Patty was able to, and that's important. We want staff to be able to give like their direct feedback and without fear of upsetting anybody. I don't know, but like being anonymous is important. So thank you so much for doing that. I know it was a lot of work and I really appreciate it. And we kind of listed the feedback in here, and you can also see the list of all the questions that are asked.
Stephanie has her hand up.
Sorry, go ahead.
Stephanie?
Yes. Hi, sorry. This is unrelated to what Janice was just saying, and I appreciate that, and certainly the anonymity. I wonder whether, and this is something that's been I've found interesting. I wonder if in the student performance one, as you build it out, if there's a way to look at, and this came up a few times with people talking to me as I was campaigning about, like, what would you cut if you're not cutting student facing things and you're like things that the district is paying for. Teachers were bringing to my attention, and I've seen it with my own kids, how much time they put into getting ready for and then sitting for all of the various testing mechanisms. And I believe that we use 3 different ones, certainly MAPS and OSAS. And I think there's a 3rd one. And so I wonder if, in building it out, because it's one thing to get all of these performance results from various testing data, but if we are taking up a lot of otherwise important instructional time that could be used, whether it's worth it. And I don't know whether that's something that could be identified or quantified, but it's certainly something that is interesting to me. And if our kids are sitting for days upon days upon days of different testing throughout the school year, that's already a short school year, should they be? So I'll just leave it at that, and maybe someone can tell me what they think.
That sounds like a whole nother audit.
It does.
That's not on the list.
But Stephanie, I will reach out to you to dig into that idea a little bit more, because it sounds very interesting to me. One thing that we at Internal Audit does is when the schools ask for support, I oftentimes let Mary Catherine go and be the support person. So, for example, she went out to, I think it was Lincoln just yesterday, and served as like a I don't know, not necessarily a proctor, but was there in the room to support students taking their tests or whatever.
Proctor, yeah.
And so that meant that she had to take the training also. And even though, we just did that to be supportive of that, but we also learned so much about the process by taking the training, and it helped build out, that kind of thing helps us build out a more rounded understanding of all of the different types of processes and procedures. But since you mentioned the testing, I just thought I'd throw that in there to just let you know, like, we do things like that to help build our understanding of different processes and procedures in addition to the actual audit work that we do.
Okay. So you know what you're going to work on.
Yes.
We did that. And thank you for quickly going over the rest.
You're welcome.
It's hard to do it. I'm amazed we took this much time. Okay. The wrap-up item, I just want to confirm our next audit committee meeting is November 6th. It's listed at 5 p.m., but if we could do it at 4:30, is that okay? Because I think all the board members have been invited to Sunnyside for a big talk about funding. So I think it's important we go to that if we can.
And we have a much smaller agenda that day, so I think we'll be out.
Well, we'll try, although this may go on longer than we think.
Okay.
Let's see if there's anything else. And just after I said we tried to meet what your needs, we asked if you can be earlier, but thank you. I appreciate it. I guess that's it. Oh, you wanted to ask if people are okay with all the paper, or if they'd rather have it.
So for me, you can tell I'm an auditor, I tick and tie things, but it's helpful for me just to facilitate the conversation, to not have to pull it up on my screen and share it. So I was just wondering if there's any preference, like does it help, or do you prefer to have it pulled up on your screen? I'm just looking for some feedback so I can be more efficient.
Well, anybody who's spent 5 minutes with me knows that I print everything out, so I appreciate it.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that if we go virtual, I'll probably just still print it out.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with the paper. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm fine either way.
Okay.
I like paper. I can find it better.
Me too.
I mean, I lose
Christy,
it, but then I find it.
Do you have a preference?
Yeah, I want to be clear. I don't want paper for our actual board meetings, but I love the paper for this one because it's like a good amount. Although I
Okay.
would like printed agendas. I keep asking for it, and it's never happened. But for other meetings, thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so
Sounds good.
much, everybody, and thanks for staying late. And Stephanie, thanks for running back and forth and making it work.
Thank you. Well,
Okay.
thank you everybody for being so with your grace for my crazy afternoon. It was nice to see everybody. Good night.
Good night. Thanks. Oh, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.